Welcome back to the Flogsville Podcast. It is the round 10 wrap. We've got 1 week to go, really, till the buys, but what a week it was on the weekend. Joining me, of course, we've got our two regular co-hosts, Coach of the Rabbitohs, Daniel. Hello, mate.
Hello, Scott. Fantastic to be here as always. And one more round, I believe, until the bye round. So big round coming up.
Absolutely. And Coach of the Guns and Roses, he's been hit with the injury bug yet again, but we'll get into that. Hello, Ben. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good evening, Commissioner. Good evening, boys. Look, we're doing some overtime work in the medical room at the Guns and Roses. It's not quite working on the hamstring strains, though, so not quite sure what's going wrong there, but we'll need to have a review into that department, I think.
Absolutely. Just you need some luck in this game, and yeah, certain coaches, especially yourself, mate, just haven't had much in the last few weeks. Really, just these forced trades, and guys like Joe Hannison, who have been, maybe a little bit criticised on the weekend, but he's been a great pick for you, and it isn't 2016. He's actually been really good. So, we'll move on from that. And straight into our pick of the week, boys. And coming out of nowhere, Saturday night, I was sort of having a look through the projected scores of everybody, and it looked like two coaches, two teams. It was Brad and it was Hugh that was sort of going to be the top of the tree this week. But out of nowhere, pretty much based on what happened Saturday night, it was the Armour Craze and Sam with a Zach Merritt VC 158, if you don't mind. That's 316. For those playing at home. That's massive. So him getting the job done by only 5 points over Brad with a 24.08. Amazing scenes here, boys.
Yeah, really impressive. Oh, sorry. We've really coughed it up right from the start. I'll go.
There you
go. Yeah. A really strong score, and I think, as you said, though, Scotty, like not much of a margin between those top few sides this round. There were some pretty good scores coming out. Obviously, a real benefit of the Zach Merritt VC, as you've already alluded to, but noticing he's carrying the Hollands 32 as well, which affected a few teams. He's still going over 2,400. So, yeah, big win for Sam, and big score. But yeah, a few coaches that were definitely around the mark for that this week.
I guess I'll jump in now. It's a good thing you reviewed this, Rab, because currently I'm having some technical issues and I can't see the team. But obviously, going from Mills to Merritt as one, his big trade last week, Sam obviously paid off, as you mentioned, Scotty, and a few other coaches did a very similar move, if not the exact same thing. So, bringing him in for instant reward was massive, and he responded quite nicely from last week, Sam. So.
Absolutely, and as we alluded to in the pod, in the preview, it was the Freo boys, Brayshaw, Darcy and Sarong. That was just massive, and we'll get into his matchup against Phenomenal, but yeah, just some outstanding stuff and a huge score with Hollands on field, as we've mentioned. James Warple just keeps getting it done, and then Darcy Wilmot, my man, with a 74, very timely sort of score there from the Rooks. So yeah, great work by Sam, and he bounces back this week, so we'll see what he can do heading into the buys. Well, of course, we've got to talk about our Spud. And I don't know, we don't do a lot of practice or research for this podcast, but having a look at it before we hit record, hopefully, Rabs and Ben, you're aware of who our Spud is. It is Team GC. Once again, what happened? Harris Andrews watch, please.
You go.
Yeah, sorry, just a little bit of indecision there. You'll notice, Scotty, after last time. Harris Andrews was 64, which wouldn't have helped. And where do you start? The whole thing's just a debacle. One name that springs out to me, Samson Ryan. I think that's his name anyway. Samson. What's he doing there? 47. That's just mysterious. And then Nick Dacos for the captaincy. Probably not quite reading the room there at the moment. Nick Dacos copying a bit of attention, and much to some coaches' delight. And yeah, that's hurt him. And I'm not sure whether he was aware that Chin Cotter wasn't playing. I don't know whether that was intentional or not. I'm really unsure, to be honest. But Team GC, all too familiar tale, it'd be fair to say.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a bit of a Control C, Control V in our run sheet, Scotty. This is very familiar territory for the GCs, and obviously had a very good close look at them on the weekend. And the decision to bring in two fresh rookies in Wardlaw and Sharp, I think it was, and banking a lot of cash. Obviously had a strategy to it, and it's certainly not paid off in the short term. And I think it's unlikely to eventuate in the long term, unfortunately. So.
No, no good. I think, as you mentioned, Samson Ryan with Nank coming back in was always not going to score what he had been as solo ruck. So, that's disappointing for Zach. But Josh Nakos, to be fair, is done pretty well. And you've got some champion data, please, Ben.
I do have some better ones than this tonight. But the first one was in relation to Samson Ryan's score. He's come up a few times tonight with his 47. And it was actually 12 more than what it should have been, because that mark was clearly not a mark and converted to a goal. So for him to get to 47 was a bit of a, miracle or whatever you want to say, because it really should have been 30 or less, really.
Very good. Yeah, we saw that in the group chat. It's just, words can't, we say it every week, but until there's something different, well, who knows with Team GC. Let's move on, boys. We had some great matchups this week. Some low-scoring matchups and some high ones, but most teams were sort of in the 22, 23s was the place to be this week. And let's start. We've spoken about McRae with a massive 24.08, getting the job done against Phenomenal with a 23.40. Good score by Tom, but he didn't do a lot wrong here, boys.
No, not a lot wrong. Bringing in Wardlaw, one of the few coaches who did, and playing him on field straight away, which was positive for Tom. And as you say, Scotty, there's not too many blokes to let him down. The pastor, recovered to make a respectable score, and then his man for Finn Callahan with a 60, not getting it done late on in the round. So, to go down by 60 would be disappointing, but there's not too many things going wrong with his side at the moment, which is a positive moving forward.
Yeah, totally agree. I think Callahan's probably the one. He showed glimpses in that game, but just didn't quite string it together. And but other than that, it's a really good score, and it's the captaincy really has had a fairly significant impact. And Taranto is still a pretty solid captain, but definitely not in the ballpark of merit and what he pulled out this week.
Absolutely, boys. All right, let's move on to the Burtons getting the job done. Second highest score this week, 24.03, up against his great friend Liam in the Smiths Crips, of course, with a 22.97. Let's have a look at this matchup, boys. Brad, just again, like with Hugh, just keeps ticking along. Zachy Butters there Friday night, Ben, as an owner, was outstanding fantasy-wise, but I have to say it's the best individual game I think I've seen live in a very long time. Just everything he did was amazing in the wet. Every decision, every kick, it was just, he had some sort of a game.
Yeah, amazing to watch live. Those two goals in the 30 kicks right in front of us. So it pains me a little bit to not own him this year after being so high on him last year and really causing some chaos with injuries and the like. But he's been fantastic this year and really showing what he's all about. So you'll have to excuse me. I can't actually bring up the matchup here in front of me, but I'll hand over to Rabs to go through the individual players. But what I do have, and a little bit of prep went into this, Scotty, is in regards to Brad. Obviously, he's flying. He's up into the 500s, I think, with the ranking, which is obviously fantastic. He's second in the comp for points for, obviously, but he's had the second easiest draw. So I don't know what you want to read into that. He's he's obviously knocked off some of the minnows as such, so potentially a tougher draw coming after the bye period. But as you've seen this week, I think he's in a really nice position.
Yeah, and I think just breaking down the matchup with, I can see what happened, so I'll try and break it. We mentioned this last week, only the 6 pods between the two sides, so not a huge amount of separation, and both captains scored virtually the same with Taranto and English. But yeah, I think, as you said, Scotty, Zach Butters really just got the ball rolling for the Burtons. And then I think the one that would have been a little bit dicey for him going into the round was Ben Hobbs, who was an inclusion. And very quickly, that was obvious that was going to pay off. And On the Crip side, Hollands as a pod, ended up being quite disastrous, unfortunately, with it being subbed off, and then Walsh and Warple just not quite getting it done. But a bit of pressure for the Smiths Crips. They haven't done a lot wrong, but they've had a pretty tough run the last 3 or 4 weeks, and that's left them in a position that they wouldn't really want to be at the moment. So, definitely an important matchup for them coming up this week.
Absolutely, and we'll get into that because there's a few forced trades for a lot of sides and some rookies, Harry Sharp in particular, not being picked this week that a few are rolling with on field. So we'll get stuck into that as we go. Next matchup, boys, it was my matchup up against the Hoffleberry FC. Nice to get a win. Both of us, really, some poor rookie scores. Surge with a Drury on field 14, if you don't mind. But apart from that, Surge's side actually performed pretty well this week. Just unfortunate there with the rookies. And on my side, I was looking good Saturday night. Obviously Butters Friday was great. And then the Bulldogs boys and Zachy Merritt coming in for Jaden Hunt, Cozzy Pickett. They're my moves, bringing in Wardlaw. So that netted me a fantastic amount of points, really. And then Ruben Jinby on Sunday just really brought this matchup very closer than it needed to be. I sort of thought I'd be on track near, one of the top 5 sort of scores this week, but just, the rookies in the end for me, not quite getting the job done. Pedler in that boat as well.
Yeah, I think this has been a really familiar tale for the Hoffleberries all season. It's been a season of near misses, and I agree, Scotty. Obviously, your boys had the capability to go a bit higher, but Drury on field with the 14 is just horrific, really. Especially when you got Davey on field as well with a 47, and as we said, very similar for you though, Scott, with 24 and 46 with your 2 boys, but. It's just been one of those seasons for Serge. He's had opportunities, and his side really it's solid. It's definitely capable of knocking off some of those top sides, but it just hasn't been able to quite come together. And he's put the VC on his big alpha male, big bull, whatever adjectives he used, Petrarca, who's just pulled out 85, which would be a bit disappointing for him too.
Yeah, I think you've covered it beautifully, boys. Having a close look at Surge, I think, you mentioned he's spending big on some of these players. I think it's going to come back to bite him later in the year with the lack of, cash generating guys, especially with the guys, Drury and Davey on field in particular. Really going to be issues. They're not looking like they're playing obviously this week, but if they do, they're only scoring 30s and 40s. So. I think for him to be any sort of chance later in the year, he's going to have to fix those positions in particular very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, boys. Absolutely. Let's move on to our next matchup. It was King Kunta in a very low-scoring matchup. Last week's pig back to earth a little bit for Peter G with a 21-61, getting the job done against the B Sharps boys. We might start with you, Rabs, just in case there's any technical difficulties on Ben's side. What did you see in this matchup here in Pete's victory?
Yeah, definitely a bit of a crash back to reality for King Kunta for the heights of the pick of the week. But Dom Sheed, really. Dom Sheed's pulled out 139 and he's won the game by 21. So I know it's offset a little bit by Ginby's 24, but Dom Sheed has really pulled him across the line there. And then I guess on the B Sharp side, Tom Stewart with 77, Brody Grundy 71. Probably the main ones that he'd be disappointed with there. The rest of the pod's mainly rookies, but not a lot in this matchup. And 2 sides that, as we've said throughout the year, can peak in weeks where other teams don't. But then, unfortunately, the downside of that is a week like this where we've seen some other teams who have scored really well, and neither of these 2 have probably gone to that level. So, still a win though for King Kunta.
Yeah, spot on. I think this template, boys, will work quite well because this will flow into some of our stats. Dale sitting in 12th. He's had a few losses on the trot. Sitting in 12th, you might associate that with a hard draw, but he's actually had the easiest draw in the competition. So, he's one of those up and down teams, but he's played more of the lesser likes this year, and he's level with the team at 8th spot because I'm keeping a very close eye on that. But he'll need to do it against some of the tougher teams later in the year to be a chance. So one to watch out there for. But for Pete, 2 in a row and keeps his season alive.
Absolutely, it does. And Dom Sheed, a few coaches started with him and he's just starting to show some of the form that maybe justified him as the starting pick. So, yes, great work by Pete picking him up. Let's go. Your win, Ben, up against Team GC. We've spoken enough about Team GC. Let's talk about you. Unfortunate, you were sort of tracking for a decent score. Just JJ going down in the 40s, unfortunately holding you back this week.
Yeah, I guess at the time it's kind of relieving having these now on a Thursday night because you sort of forget how much frustration you had at the time when these things happen, Scotty. He was obviously tracking very nicely, JJ, 40-odd at half-time and looking like another sort of 80-plus score. But, when you run as quickly as he does in the coldest place on earth, you're highly likely to do a hamstring, unfortunately. So, nice, week otherwise, bring Merritt in for his big score, along with a few other coaches, as we've mentioned. Getting the win, which wasn't always going to be as comfortable as what it was leading into Sunday. But, we'll take the points, regardless. And as was being said the last few weeks, it's very open, that 8 to 12, 13 region. And you've seen why, because one win's taken us from 12th to 8th. So I'll definitely be taking that.
Yeah, not a lot to add on this one. I think we've spoken definitely enough about Team GC, but solid enough win for Ben's side, but obviously a few injury concerns, which we'll come to when we preview this week's games.
Yeah, we will. And I have to mention Jack McRae, mate. Just the 117, he's cracked the 100 for you.
Yeah, it's nice to see. It's really just letting that player, I'm not even looking at that player each week at the moment. It's just do what he wants, and he's furthest, he's about 5 or 6 down the trade order. So it's nice to get a return of form, and looks as if we might be able to slot him in the forward line next week.
Yes, very much so. All right, let's get into it. Your matchup, Rabs, you had a nice score this week with a 23-65, narrowly getting the job done against the Crouching Lions, who also scored very well this week with a 23-39. Why did you get the win on the weekend, Rabs? What worked for your boys?
This was an interesting match. I must admit I was fairly confident going into it because I know it's going back a bit, but Brett had a few injury concerns going into the round. And then, the guys who he sort of had, like Hobbs and Weddle, who I was sort of thinking might just post whatever they'd post, ended up posting over 190 between them. So I was quite concerned at that stage, Scott. And it left, the two GWS boys and Liam Stocker with a bit of work to do in the last game. And obviously I had a keen eye on that game and had quite conflicted interests throughout that game. But, just the style of game sort of suited what I needed there. And Stocker as well got heavily involved in the game, particularly late when St Kilda were just trying to milk the clock. So that got me across the line. And I guess on Brett's side, Josh Kelly started on fire in that game in the first 10 minutes and then, appeared quite sore and obviously now is injured. And then Holland's being subbed off has really killed him because, he's only gone down by, 20 or 30, and he's got 32 there. So a little bit fortunate for my boys, but, it was a nice score at least.
Yeah, unfortunately, we sort of highlighted this for Brett, those 3 key injuries last week, and he can only cover 2 of them. I noticed that he's kept Duncan on the bench, and then, you mentioned Kelly as well this week. So, unfortunately, it doesn't stop for Brett. He's going to have to field some, rookies that he may not want to this week as well. But, a couple of interesting champion datas here. And they're all on the Rabbitohs, actually, funny enough. I don't know if you know this, Coach, but the Rabbitohs have had the fifth easiest draw in the competition, if I can say that. And they are the only team in the top 8 to not be over the valuable 20 mil mark in the team value. So team value is something that we're going to be looking at a little bit later, Scotty. But there sort of tends to be that the 20 mil or above teams are obviously the better teams this year. But noticing also that there's a lot of in the kitty for the Rabbitohs this week, heading into this week's matchup.
No words.
No words. Todd Goldstein again, fantastic. He's been a solid pickup for you, and Bailey Smith as well coming in, Rabs. a very tasty 121 against the Crows. We love that. Now, boys, this was a bit of an upset. It was Total Eclipse of the Heart with a 23-21. That's right. Getting the win against the Keys with a 22-33, boys.
Oh, okay. I'll start, Rabs, with my numbers here because there's some crackers on this one, actually, Scotty.
All right.
And I won't get to the matchup because I can't see it. But what I can see is that we were talking about team value just before, and Hills had a good win this week. He's one of only two teams outside the 8 to be over that 20 mil mark in team value. So he's had a little bit of more attention to detail last few weeks, and it's actually proving to be quite fortuitous in how it's turning out. And for Jake, there's a couple of rippers here actually. He's the other team outside the 8 above the 20 mil mark. But he has had the hardest draw in the competition as Jake. So for him to be sitting 4 and 6, obviously disappointing 3 losses on the trot, but you would have to think he would have a reasonably smooth ride towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I think this is a really tough loss for Jay, though. I think having a look at it, this is a game that he would have really been hoping to win. I think as you sort of acknowledged, though, Hills has definitely, I don't know what's happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks, but he's flicked some sort of switch and changes are happening, and he's produced a relatively strong side now, which is definitely going to be competitive against most teams. So, just sort of flicking through the matchup on Jake's side, Ginby and Hollands both on field. To have both of those blokes is an absolute killer. And that's really, really hurt him. On Hills' side, his rookies were okay. Angwin with 32 is obviously not great, but he got away with it because what was happening on the other side, captain scores were not really that different. And because of that, Hills has got home. So a good win for him. And with the team value, probably a team to sort of watch, especially coming out of the buys. If he's able to continue to, make trades, he might be quite dangerous out of that.
Very good analysis, boys. Fantastic stuff. Let's move on to our last matchup of the round. It was, my God, your Liberatore with 23-88. Another great score. I'm sure you'll have some champion datas for us, Ben, getting the job done against the Glen Mountain Fan Club. What have you got for us, mate?
Sorry, that was a throw to me. A great deal. What I do have actually with Huey is, he's obviously been top of the tree all this year, and ranking just above the 130s, I think it is at the moment. But he has had the 5th hardest draw in the comp as well. So he's doing it against the better teams, and with where he's sitting, you'd have to think, he would be the minor premier favourite at this stage. So we continue to follow that. I think the other thing to notice here, boys, there's a bit of rumour during the week that he's going down to Tasmania during this weekend or during this round's fixtures. Potentially a little bit of head wobble, look at me type areas, trying to resolve the Tasmania Stadium issue, trying to be a bit of a AFL representative as such, but something to keep an eye on and see how the boys perform with the head coach away this week.
Yes, we'll definitely be watching that very closely as we'll come to shortly. But I just looking at Hughes' side, Scott, I think about what you said last week about when people are having one of those years, they make the right moves at the right time. And I look at Ben Hobbs, I would assume was an inclusion last week, coming on with a 92 straight away. Just another example of just picking those guys, and I know he wasn't alone with that, but picking guys at the right time. On Sean's side, he hasn't done a lot wrong. 22-60 is certainly not a bad score. Just a few guys probably not quite with the same ceiling really as what Hugh had on his side, and I think that's probably the main killer there, and probably an extra one too many rookies on field with Pedler with the 40.
Excellent work, boys. All right, let's head to this round. We've got round 11. Of course, it is the crucial round before we've got 4 weeks of buys. So 4 weeks of no fixtures, 4 weeks of making your team better, hopefully getting these bloody rookies off the field. They seem to be causing us some issues. And we start with a tasty matchup, boys. It is McRae up against Smith's Cripps. Fantastic matchup here. Let's talk through this one, boys.
Yeah, very good matchup, as you said, and a really important match for both sides. But I would probably say more important for Smith Cripps, to be honest, given the current form run they've been in of late. I think just having a quick squeeze through the pods, I'm probably leaning towards the Armour Craze, but there's not a hell of a lot in it, to be honest. And you could make an argument both ways. But I think I'm going to lean just towards Sam's side, but I think it'll be very tight.
Yeah, I think I will agree. The difference being Zach Merritt now that Xavier O'Neill's been omitted from the West Coast side, so no tag, you would assume. And when there's only 6 or 7 pods I can see, I think they might play and to beat the difference.
Yeah, great work, boys. I think, a very tight matchup here, and Harry Sharp is an issue for Liam and the Smiths Cripps not getting the pick, but I like James Sicily's potential up against the Saints. So I think if he's in the mood at Marvel Stadium, funny things happen under the roof. And then Errol Goulden on Friday night, potentially against Carlton, could be, he's shown a bit of a ceiling lately. So yes, a couple of nice matchups there on Liam's side, but I think you have to back in Sam's, boys. Let's move on to my matchup this week. We're up against Phenomenal, which is a nice little top 8 matchup. 4th B6, boys. We've got some. We contacted Tom. Obviously, Thursday night is a little bit difficult for him. He's got footy training, but wanted to get his thoughts on TIO Stadium because it's going to come very relevant in the next 2 weeks, well, especially this week with the Gold Coast Bulldogs game. I'm just going to read out some of his thoughts and predictions here because they're fantastic. So let's go. Expecting a low fantasy scoring game at TIO. So Tom has obviously played there and he's watched a lot of footy there last year up in Darwin. Wouldn't be confident with the C on anyone, perhaps 200 or 300s per side. However, the sweaty, greasy conditions aren't all that suitable to a kick mark game style. So the Gold Coast Suns there we're talking about. Large ground, even by AFL standards. So plenty of space for outside players to get off the chain. Gold Coast play the conditions well and present some value at $2.58. Gamble responsibly. They only played Hawthorn and North there last year. The Gold Coast are used to those conditions. It'll be interesting how the Bulldogs go. But that is what Tom thought about this weekend. Anything else you'd like to add, boys?
It's incredible insight from one of the great coaches in our competition. Obviously, those sort of that sort of information, Scotty. I see Rory Atkins as a unique scorer this week. That's not boding too well in that department. Hopefully, he can flip the script on that, so to speak. But yeah, apart from that, in this matchup, Clayton Oliver is unique, and Josh Kelly on your side, Scotty, is big premium injuries, which I'm sure we'll touch on in other matchups being the key to this. I think with no real conviction, I think I'll be backing your boys, Scotty, but it'll be very, very tight this one.
Yeah, conscious of time. So, yeah, definitely very, very tight. I think just your boys, Scotty. I think Merritt looms large as a pod, but, yeah, it'll be super tight. Very even matchup.
Yeah, it could well be. And I think Oliver, potentially Tom maybe goes to a Merritt to sort of, play that. But, it will be a very close matchup. Let's talk about the Burpens very quickly against the B-Sharps. Burpens going to keep rolling, boys?
Yeah, they will. But do you know what's amazing? There's only 6 pods in this game, which is astounding. I thought there'd be way more than that. But, they'll win.
Agree. All right, Huffleberry FC up against your boys, Ben. Obviously, with 2 forced trades, is this the week that Surge can get over the top of you, or will it be more excuses?
I'd like to think so, Scott. There's never been a better opportunity for him to beat me because he never has, and hopefully he never will and won't this week. So, as you say, 2 forced injuries, that's what it is. But hopefully we're bringing some nice guys, and noting that he has not much, funds to help with that F6 or M8 spot this week, which is fantastic.
Oh, all right. King Kunta up against the Crouching Lions. We know King Kunta can sort of fluctuate, but the Lions just starting to get the ball rolling, boys.
Yeah, Lions for me. I think he's unlucky not to win against my boys on the weekend, and I think he'll win this week.
Yeah, agree.
All right. Team GC up against the Keys. Keys need a win before the buys.
They do, yeah. I think the stats before lend favourably to them. I think they'll be one of the homes to come home strong. One of the teams to come home strong, sorry. So I'll be back in this week and a bit after the buys.
Totally agree.
Beautiful. Rabs, top of the table sort of matchup here. You're playing first place, my God, your Liberatore. A massive game for your boys this week. Let's have a look at this matchup.
Yeah. Obviously, very tough matchup given how Hugh's been going. But yeah, I think we got a little bit of an opportunity. I was a little bit concerned originally with Oliver, but Kelly now is an issue for him as well, so that kind of evens out. And I said that he had Harry Sharp on field last week as well. So I think his team is better, but hopefully there's not that much between it. That if a few boys sort of do some things, and as Ben said, we've got a few funds, so we'll be able to make a few changes to hopefully be better. So we'll see.
I think the Harry Sharp inclusion last week is a sneaky tough one for Hugh this week. Unfortunately, the MA are not a great deal on the bench to be able to have as backup. He's going to have a real hard time fixing that, I think, considering he grabbed Hobbs last week and there's not many other options. So, based on that, I think it could be really tight. Probably have to back you, but wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way this week.
Very good, boys. Last matchup. It is Total Eclipse of the Heart up against the Glen Mountain Fan Club. This is an important fixture for both sides. The winner here will get some real momentum going into the buys.
Yeah, crucial match for both teams. I think just having a skim through them, though, I think Hills' side might pick up another win here. I think he's actually got a bit of momentum up the last few weeks. And as I said, Scotty, Sean's team is up and down, so you never know. But I think Hills has been on the improve and he might get the win here.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And looking at that 8 to 13 spot, which he currently resides, is only 2 points. Oof. So there's some really tight fixtures coming up. I noticed basically the top 6 or 7 play each other this week, which means the rest of us play, us plebs. There's a bit to play out this week and then leading into the rest of the year. Favour Hughes this week, I think.
Beautiful work, boys. We'll leave it there this week. Good luck, everybody. If I can even talk, we'll be back next week to wrap up everything as we head into the buys. Good luck all. See you later.